Hi, this is Mike Brennan here at the National Hurricane Center. It's 4:00 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, November 5th, coming on with the latest on an intensifying tropical storm Raphael, almost to hurricane intensity here this afternoon, only centered now about 45 or 50 miles to the southeast of the islands of Little Cayman and Cayman Brac in the Cayman Islands. You can see the center can be quite well defined on satellite imagery as it passed west of Jamaica today, moving off to the northwest at 15 miles per hour. Data from the Hurricane Hunter aircraft indicate that the maximum sustained winds now are up to about 70 miles per hour and the pressure down to about 989 millibars. And we can see the shower and thunderstorm activity becoming better organized near the center. If we look at the radar from the Cayman Islands, you can see the eye starting to take shape here in the radar imagery as the center again is only about 45 or 50 miles to the southeast of Little Cayman and Cayman Brac. And again, the center will be moving over those islands this evening, likely as a hurricane. We'll have the next Hurricane Hunter aircraft from both the Air Force Reserves and NOAA into the storm this evening to give us a better estimate of the storm's intensity at that time. Overall, the track forecast really for the next 2 to 3 days has not really changed much since even since yesterday. We're expecting a northwestward motion that again is going to take the center of Raphael over portions of the Cayman Islands and then over and near the Isle of Youth and across western Cuba as we go from during the day on Wednesday, and then a northwestward to west-northwestward turn taking the center well west of the Florida Keys, but close enough that we're going to see some tropical storm conditions there as we go through Wednesday night and into Thursday, and then a slower west-northwestward motion across the Gulf of Mexico Thursday and Friday as a hurricane. And then perhaps a more northward turn as we go into the weekend, but the environment over the northern Gulf is not going to be as conducive for strengthening, and in fact we do expect Raphael to weaken to a tropical storm as it moves into the northern Gulf of Mexico. So we'll touch on that a little more in a few minutes. But first, let's talk about the impacts here. We're going to see hurricane conditions, dangerous storm surge, destructive waves, heavy rainfall moving across the Cayman Islands tonight, and then reaching Cuba in the morning hours on Wednesday, where we have a hurricane warning in effect for the Isle of Youth, western Cuba, the Cayman Islands, tropical storm warnings in effect for portions of central Cuba as well. And then as the center moves across into the Gulf of Mexico, we're expecting to see those tropical storm conditions in the middle and lower Florida Keys, where we have a tropical storm warning in effect. In addition, near and just to the right of where the center makes landfall along the south coast of Cuba, we're expecting a pretty dangerous storm surge of 6 to 9 feet above normal tide levels, along with destructive wave action. So again, very dangerous conditions are going to play out beginning in the early morning hours and overnight into Wednesday across much of western Cuba as the core of Raphael moves across those islands. And we are again expecting some additional intensification. Could see Raphael reach Category 2 intensity before it makes landfall in Cuba. Let's look at the timing of the impacts here in terms of the tropical storm conditions. We'll be reaching the Cayman Islands here very shortly, if not already, reaching the southern coast of Cuba in the early morning hours Wednesday, Isle of Youth, and then reaching the Florida Keys in the tropical storm warning area during the day on Wednesday. If we were to see tropical storm conditions reach the northern Gulf Coast later in the week, it would be sometime in the Friday to Saturday timeframe, but the impacts, or the possibility of impacts, is still rather uncertain in the northern Gulf Coast, as we're not exactly sure what sort of structure Raphael will have and how that will eventually affect the track. We could see a slow motion and a decaying system across the northern Gulf of Mexico, or a system that is still weakening but turns northward and eventually makes landfall, potentially bringing some impacts, so we still have time to watch that play out. Let's talk next about the rainfall. Again, rainfall is one of the deadliest hazards associated with tropical storms and hurricanes, especially in the Caribbean. In Jamaica, we could see, again, isolated rainfall totals as high as 10 inches in some locations. Those heavy rainfalls are going to move across, especially Little Cayman and Cayman Brac here, where we could see isolated totals approaching 10 inches as the core of Raphael moves across those islands tonight. And then as we get up into western Cuba, near where the core tracks, we could see, again, 3 to 6 inch totals across much of the area, isolated totals as high as 10 inches, could cause some flash flooding and landslides in those areas. In the Florida Keys, we're expecting 1 to 3 inches of rainfall across the middle and lower portions of the Florida Keys. And in addition to that, there will be a tornado threat that will exist tomorrow from Wednesday morning into Wednesday afternoon and evening across portions of the southwestern peninsula of Florida, with a higher risk across the middle and lower Florida Keys and the rain bands associated with Raphael as the center passes to the west. So let's wrap up with the key messages for Raphael this afternoon. On Tuesday afternoon, we are expecting Raphael to be a hurricane when it passes through the Cayman Islands in the next 12 hours. Damaging hurricane force winds, dangerous storm surge, destructive waves, heavy rainfall, all expected there. Residents there should be in their safe place and prepared to ride out the storm tonight and into Wednesday. We're expecting additional strengthening, possibly rapid strengthening, as Raphael makes landfall and approaches the Isle of Youth and makes landfall along the south coast of Cuba on Wednesday. A hurricane warning in effect there for life-threatening storm surge inundation, hurricane force winds, dangerous waves and destructive waves, and again, heavy rainfall and flooding. Tropical storm conditions expected in the lower and middle Florida Keys on Wednesday and continuing into Wednesday night. Also the possibility for 1 to 3 inches of rain and some isolated tornado threat in the Florida Keys as well. It's too early to determine what impacts Raphael may have along the northern Gulf Coast as we get later into the week. There's a lot of uncertainty in the forecast, so everybody in that area should just be stay tuned and wait for further updates on the forecast for Raphael. And then finally, the heavy rainfall will continue across portions of Jamaica, move into the Cayman Islands and Cuba. Again, the potential for life-threatening flash flood and landslides there. So we'll be back with more updates on Raphael throughout the week. You can always get the latest here from the National Hurricane Center at Hurricanes.gov. In the Caribbean, you can get the latest information from your local National Meteorological Service. And in the United States, you can get more information from your local National Weather Service office at weather.gov. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Brennan at the National Hurricane Center.